Here we go, it's all about you, it's all about me, it's all about what we do. Making art, you and me, trying to find something to believe. Because I'm running wild, I'm running free. Still got a lot of shit left to say.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hey, it's your girl Britannia, and we're here for another video. And this time we're going to be talking about the strike action going on right now in Hollywood and LA specifically, with the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union. Now, I know you guys probably been hearing a lot about the strike action in the last few weeks. I've seen it all over my social media platforms that I use frequently, like TikTok and Instagram. I've seen it in the news, and at this point, it's a very inescapable, it's very inescapable news, and a lot of people are talking about it, so I figured we should talk about it here as well. Now, as you can tell from the title, this video is not just touching on the strikes, but also kind of using the strike action going on right now in Hollywood as a way to branch off and then go on and talk about some other things going on in the entertainment industry right now that a lot of people have been noticing and a lot of people have been kind of pinpointing and talking about. And I wanted to bring that discussion here and culminate it into a bigger discussion about kind of like the pervasive shortism that is going on in the entertainment industry right now. And through talking about the strikes, I'll also go on to then talk about what in the entertainment industry the strikes has brought to the forefront of our attention. What about the strike actions and the ongoing negotiations has become very interesting talking points about what is happening right now in the entertainment industry. What is it exposing about its current industry practices and norms? And then at the end of the video, I'm gonna go into a bit more detail about some of the words I used before, kind of like short-termism, and kind of explain to you guys what does that mean and why you should care about it and what does it have to do with the entertainment industry or these strikes. If you didn't know by now, the strike that I'm talking about is basically the joint strike action of the SAG-AFTRA union and the Writers Guild of America. SAG and AFTRA is the largest actors union in America. So it used to be two separate acting unions, or a union for actors, until it joined together at some point later on. And now it's SAG-AFTRA. So both unions are now on strike against the AMTPP, which is kind of like the body of organization representing many studios which we are known and familiar with in the entertainment industry. So those studios are the companies which make sure that what we consume from entertainment is made. So Alliance represents big streaming and big network TV. Now, the next thing you need to know about the strike action is what the strike action is actually about. And why are these unions and these actors and writers out on the picket lines of LA right now? And what are their demands? According to SAG, in particular their executive director and chief negotiator, Duncan Crabtree, Ireland, there has been a sea of change in the entertainment industry, from the proliferation of streaming platforms to the recent explosion of generative AI. And at stake is the ability of our members to make a living. Just to summarize what exactly that entails, I'm gonna let you know their demands. The first being very simple, an increase in their minimum pay of wages by firstly 11% in the first year, and the subsequent year another 4%. And then for a third and final year, another 4% increase. They're also asking for an increase in streaming residuals in this kind of like revenue sharing plan. SAG has also asked for improved working conditions, and that would include having hair care and makeup professionals for actors and actresses of color, because that's also something that's been in the kind of like zeitgeist of discourse when it comes to entertainment recently, and how POC people are treated within the entertainment industry in particular. There's been a lot of kind of like discourse lately and talks and actresses coming out about how they've been treated as a Black woman or other POC women or actresses in entertainment, not having any professionals that can do their hair, having to do their own hair, pay for their own hair, come to set with their hair done, come to set with their makeup done. So that means they're paying for their own makeup, they're learning how to do that, they're taking time out of their day to do their own hair and makeup, while all the other actors on set don't have to go through any of that hassle or extra expense. So that's a very important working condition that SAG has put out there for their negotiations as well, and their demand. And then the last demand that SAG has brought to our attentions that's a part of their kind of wants within these negotiations and in this strike is better health and pension plan arrangements for themselves. So that would be seen in things like increasing the caps that they currently have on their pension and healthcare contributions. With all of this going on, what else have we learned through the strike action? Like I said, the strike action has been a big topic in news and other forms of media in the last couple of weeks. We've been seeing on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm not sure what's going on with Twitter or Threads, but people have been talking about the strike action. And so a lot of new information has been coming out to the public in regards of the entertainment industry and what's going on in that industry right now and what's led to the strike. So, what has the strike action exposed about the industry? Well, first of all, we've learned through the strike action and through actors and actresses talking to us that the unions claim that the emergence of streamings has completely changed the business model for them, and that has negatively affected a majority of actors and writers. So the previous model was basically the syndication model, which was a part of the entertainment industry, obviously before big streaming like Netflix was around. So that has been one of the most significant changes that has been highlighted in the news and discourse about the strikes. Another subtopic under that has been the royalty payments that actors and actresses have been receiving and how that has been affected by streaming. So a lot of actors and actresses have been coming out all over TikTok and other platforms to say that they're not getting paid the same way that they used to, and residuals made up a large amount of their additional main income. So at least actors who we know are members of the SAG, so 80% of those actors are kind of like minor actors or background actors or supporting actors. So people who are not making millions of dollars from the box office, people who are not getting paid 10 million per episode. These are who we're talking about. Those residuals can be as little as a penny to like 99 cents or a bit more. So they're very small incremental amounts. And because of the longevity of TV shows, despite how small those amounts were, they added up in the long term and benefited those minor actors and actresses who don't get paid the big bucks. And that was another way for them to kind of like supplement their main income, which would be, you know, a fixed one-time lump sum payment before a project. And that is how basically they maintained a sustainable living. The second thing we've now learned about is kind of like these AI proposals coming from Alliance, the group that's representing the producers or the big production within entertainment industry. So with the rising popularity of utilizing artificial intelligence as a way to primarily cut costs for businesses, particularly and commonly in labor, we've learned how this may also now significantly diminish the earning capacity of actors and actresses in America. So during the strikes, allegedly in the negotiations, Alliance had offered a proposal where they would scan background actors and actresses for their digital image and create a digital replica of themselves to then use forever in future projects without further consent from the actor or actress. So they'd be saving money on actors by not using people at all. And how much are they gonna offer for that kind of deal where basically you're giving your rights away, your image rights away to a company so that you can never work again for that company in any other project because they already have your image. They don't need you then. So basically selling yourself out of career. And guess what the proposal of pay is for that? Half a day's pay. Half a day's pay to never work again, potentially. Or at least in America or for that production company, half a day's pay. So then the studio would own their immortal digital replica and has also just suggested about not only owning an image per se, but then using kind of like that digital replica to say certain dialogue as well is what they want to do with AI. If you don't hear red flags behind that, I don't know what to tell you because the whole thing is a red flag. Now, my mother effing girl, Fran Drescher from The Nanny, which is one of my favorite TV shows when I was growing up. Fran Drescher, president of the SAG union, noted that the impact of AI and streaming on the industry's business model at the union's press conference announcing the strike on Thursday afternoon. This is a moment of history and a moment of truth. If we don't stand tall right now, we are all going to be in trouble, she said. We are all going to be in jeopardy of being replaced by machines and big businesses who care more about Wall Street than you and your family. Now, just to give you guys a better idea about how the current business model of the entertainment industry negatively impacts these people, I want to contextualize some of this for you, because what I've noticed a lot from some comments online when it pertains to this strike is some people have the attitude of, oh, well, why should we care about actors and actresses that get paid so much compared to the regular person? Or they've made a choice to go away from doing something like a 9-to-5, which can be more stable and more reliable, to do something like acting. Now, first of all, have empathy. Have empathy for other people. Second of all, even 9-to-5s don't pay anymore. Poverty is rising all around the world right now, and people are finding themselves in horrible predicaments where they can't afford to live. And this is not an actor's problem. This is not a creative's problem. This is not just the arts that's experiencing this. It's not one industry. This is worldwide. This is global. This is multiple industries. So saying things like that just, it does not apply. And third of all, at the end of the day, you watch TV and you watch movies. Just because someone chose a more creative and artistic lifestyle or way of making income doesn't mean that they should just be disregarded because you consume art and you enjoy art. If we're gonna have a society where we say art matters and that we like art, then we can then also say we don't care about actors and actresses. It just does not make sense. Where are you gonna get the art from? Corporations or AI? Is that what you want? Do you want soulless art? Think about it. People who choose to be accountants aren't the only people who should be able to live reasonably within our society. Another quote from Fran Drescher: those big stars that earn 7 and 8 figures, they're the engine that makes it all run. They're the thing that draws people into theaters and allows everybody below them to work and make a living. So I don't have anything against them. But 86% of the people in this 160,000 member strong union don't make enough money to even be eligible for health benefits. That threshold is actually quite low. It's like 26,000. So again, I want to contextualize the life that these actors and actresses are living under the current regime of the entertainment industry and how they kind of like treat everyone in it. The 26,000 is actually 25,590 US dollars. And that is the threshold that you have to meet in order to be able to access healthcare and other health benefits as a member of the SAG union. And actually that threshold was recently changed and made effective January 1st, 2021. Previously, the arrangements were that there were 2 healthcare plans and therefore 2 different thresholds. The first threshold was within $18,000 range per year. So that's how much you had to make as a low income earner, as an actor and actress, in order to get healthcare benefits. And then they had a second threshold that was a bit higher for people who gain a bit more. And that threshold was at $35,000. So at some point, in order to kind of like save money, they decided to scrap the 2 separate thresholds and just have the one threshold of $25,000. And $25,000 per year is what apparently 86% of the union does not make. 86% of the union cannot make $26,000 in a year in order to be able to get healthcare. So if you're hearing that, obviously then every single actor and actress who is not a big time mainstay is not making millions. It's in the numbers. They're not. They're barely making what some would consider a decent salary in a lot of parts of the USA. And the USA is one of the countries known for having one of the largest salaries in the world. For example, here in London, £25,000 is, I think, the average-ish salary, which may near more to like 30-ish something thousand US dollars. And these people are not even making 25. And here in the UK and in London, we're known to have far lower salaries than the US. You actually have some people who moved from the US to London complaining about how UK salaries are not equivalent to US ones. Now, let's further contextualize that. Most actors and actresses have to live in LA in order to do what they need to do to get bookings. So go to auditions and other things. A lot of that happens in LA. So what is the average cost of living in LA? Let's look at it. So apparently the average cost of living in LA is almost 30,000 US dollars. Now, let's think back to that salary number again. If most people aren't making 25,000 and the average cost of living in LA is more akin to 30,000, again, this information shows us that actors and actresses are not in a position to make a sustainable living, to make a living where they can afford to have fundamental human rights such as housing, food, etc. Now, Los Angeles is known as being one of the most expensive cities in the world. If you have an industry where people who want to perform and be a part of that industry and work for that industry have to live in LA, one of the most expensive cities in the world, then their pay should be able to reflect that as well so that they can actually live in LA. Another thing to consider is the fact that real wages are slowly decreasing as inflation rises. And again, that is a global problem. Real wages are the amount of people that are paid when adjusted for inflation, and they measure the purchasing power of workers. So according to the Labor Department, real wages have declined by more than 1% in the past year, and inflation has far outpaced real wages. And that is one of the reasons why SAG has asked for an increase in their minimum pay of wages. And that's why they specifically asked for that 11%, 4% implementation or proposal, because that would take them in line with inflation. So that means that right now they're 11% behind in an inflation because of the current amount they're being paid. And then the last thing I want you guys to consider about why this matters and how this is affecting these people. Actors and actresses are very much self-employed freelancers. And with that, it means that their main source of income is very uncertain. Unlike the lifestyle of a traditional 9-to-5, where you have a fixed income and you have a lot of security because you've been employed in a permanent role, actors have to get contract after contract to be able to take part in a project, so a movie and a TV show, and those projects, you know, there's no guarantee that they last. For example, TV shows, they get renewed every season. So every season you're just hoping to, you know, that your TV show may come back. And sometimes, even for like the smallest things, side actors and actresses can be cut from those projects. There's a lot of uncertainty in their income source. There may be multiple different periods where those actors and actresses are relying on maybe their savings because they're not receiving income right now. But how can they have savings if they don't even have enough money to afford food, rent, and transportation? How can you be able to save and sustain yourself on less than $25,000 a year in LA? This doesn't even take into consideration other things that they will have to pay for, such as paying their agents, PR and marketing teams, or even like getting to their auditions or doing things for auditions, taking classes. Now you may be wondering, where does all this short-termism nonsense you were talking about earlier come into play? Well, let me explain it to you, and let me just first start off by defining what that word means. Short-termism is a corporate phrase, and it's used in fields like corporate governance. And as one of the subjects of which I kind of studied while I was in law school and focused on public and private company law. And while I was studying those topics, I learned about short-termism. It's a hard word to say, I bet you go for it. Maybe my accent is a bit thick, but anyway. So what is it? Basically, it's just actions or a preference for decisions that create an optimum short-term outcome. And usually that short-term outcome is detrimental to other long-term outcomes and goals. or prospects. Short-termism is often manifested through managers or management's effort to maximize shareholder profits, so dividends. And if they're not trying to maximize shareholder profits, they're probably trying to maximize the share prices of their company through value extraction methods. And when I say value extraction, it means it's simply just, as it sounds, taking away valuable things away from the business in order to gain these short-term goals or profits. So for example, one of the most common value extraction methods in order to have or gain short-term profits for management is by cutting investments in the company. Why? Because greed and big bonuses. Most managers of companies, so we're talking about CEOs or other like higher forms of management, it's because their income is split into fixed and variable segments. So they get a fixed form of pay and a variable form of pay within their payment package working for that company. And I'm gonna explain that more. So the fixed income is like the salary, and then the variable is the bonuses. Now, a lot of management bonuses of these billion-dollar companies are tied to things like shareholders. So they will tie them to shareholder interests, and that's how they motivate these managers to always want to give all this money away to shareholders in dividends, and why they will be motivated to mess with share pricing as well, is because that's another way that they would measure how to give out bonuses. So sometimes share prices are linked to management performance as a form of measurement, and that's how they will determine how much of a bonus you'll get. The issue then lies here. Share prices tend to reflect future successes or like probability expectations rather than account for long-term implications. So therefore, managers are paid before they even do anything. You don't see the results, it's just expected outcomes. And they get paid on the expectation rather than the actual result. And then another reason why it can be very problematic to have your bonuses for management and CEOs be tied to stock prices is because they fluctuate quite a lot. They're unstable, and some people say they're not even a very accurate measurement of the company's performance, and they're very error prone. So it's really not efficient or even really that great of an idea to tie share prices to bonuses, but that's how it works anyway. A report tendered from PwC has also gone to show that there's a strong link between executive bonuses rising and investments declining within a company. And apparently that's especially the case for companies that do have this kind of payment structure for managers. Also, another very big problematic issue with tying share prices to management bonuses is that it can greatly affect us, all of us. Share-based incentives for CEOs have been linked to scandals like the Enron scandal. And the Enron scandal, if you're not sure just by name what that is basically the scandal that inspired the Wolf of Wall Street, and which also is allegedly contributed to the financial crisis. So the crash that has now made us all broke from the year 2007. That crisis that is still now affecting us to this day, and seeing millennial and Gen Zs not be able to afford their own homes while baby boomers rule the world and make the wealth gap inequality bigger. Now lastly, I'm going to talk about a few of those industry trends and trends which I'm critiquing, so negative trends basically, that I think are potentially tied to short-termism in the industry and in the market right now. So for one, the dependence on old IP. We've seen it everywhere. Franchises are taking over and everything is a remake, a reboot, a requel, or a live action adaptation of something that a production company has in the back as their old IP. And this is one of the biggest trends we're seeing right now. So many production companies are doing it. We see Disney doing it, of course, they're the biggest offender. We've just had the Barbie movie, which is pretty great, but now Mattel is saying that they want to make 37 other movies about their toy line, and like, Mattel, no, we don't want that. You couldn't even do Winx, and you want to do 37 movies on just random ass toys like the cube or whatever? What are you thinking? So like these are the foolish decisions they're making and losing money because they're just too afraid to invest in anything that's uncertain. So they're just doubling down on old IP for everything. Now, why could they be wanting to do this? Again, like I said before, it's prioritizing guaranteed profits. So guaranteed profits instead of taking creative investments to gain profits in the long term. So it's just a desire not to take risk, even if it does pan out in the future with, collecting kind of like a lot of positive reviews and grabbing people's attention on a new project and doing things like that. It's just like sticking with the old. And because of that lack of investment in that fear, we're getting less diverse voices and stories being told through the industry. Another issue we've been seeing in the industry is the cancellation cycle. Now, Netflix is kind of the company that's become notorious for this and may have kind of started the trend in the first place. So Netflix is known, at least amongst the public, whether it be true or not, Netflix is known for canceling any of their series before it reaches kind of like the third season. Now, of course, I'm speaking in very general terms. They haven't canceled every single Netflix produced project by the third season. There are other Netflix projects that made it past the third season, but they do have a tendency of canceling things by or before the third season because that's when they have to increase the pay of their acting staff on those projects. So now we're getting a lot of things thrown at us that have no finish date and have no intention of being finished because it's gained enough money in the first 1 or 2 seasons for short-term profits. And they don't want to spend more money on a third season, even if it means that that show becomes very popular in the long term and ends up to a 6th season where you make more money anyway, just because it would be cheaper to make a whole new TV show and pay people less. So that means that any series that lacks an extraordinary audience pull, so we're talking Game of Thrones numbers, like Stranger Things numbers, any show that can't do that is getting axed. So if you're not the next Bridgerton, you're not gonna be on Netflix for very long. Now, of course, Netflix isn't the only repeat offender of this. We're now seeing this with HBO Max. The trend is spreading, and it's affecting the enjoyment of consumers because I've seen a lot of people now say that they can't get into stuff because they know it's gonna end prematurely. So things like Sense8, which I love very much, you don't get to fully enjoy where those characters and that storyline could have gone if it lasted past 2 seasons. We also see a lot of things not even going past the first season, a lot of things cutting right there, things like The Society and so many other movies and TV shows. And it's become very frustrating as a consumer to not be able to consume what I actually want. And it means there's just more things being produced without any follow through. And so we just have this abundance of TV shows and movies and TV shows and movies that don't go anywhere. And Netflix, your catalog is already too long. Other than canceling, the other thing we've now seen, which I've mentioned before, is the shortening of season lengths and episode lengths. So the standard 20 to 25 episodes, we're not getting that anymore. We're getting 8 to 10 episodes. And now we're not getting even 3 seasons, where before you could get 6, 7 seasons of a show. You see some shows like Grey's Anatomy going on to their 30th season. I don't know if it's actually the 30th season, but yeah. You get the point, it's a lot. Oh my God, stop texting! And I don't think shortening the amount of episodes from 20 to, let's say, 15 would have been that bad, or maybe even 14, 12 episodes, but to have only 8 episodes sometime for a whole season, it just means that you're not giving TV series enough time to flesh out anything. Not the plot, not the characters, not anything. And you can start to see it and feel it. So again, it's taking away from the quality of what we watch with certain shows. Now, other than caring as a consumer, why else should you care? There are some wider contacts and effects of all of this that we've been talking about as well. Other than the fact that it's going to affect you as a consumer, when businesses are plagued by short-termism, it can also see that these businesses become susceptible to things like bankruptcy and financial failure. And again, why should you care about that? Shouldn't it be good if like a monopoly like Disney fails? No. Disney shouldn't be a monopoly, and these greedy companies shouldn't be able to get away with being these greedy corporations. But at the end of the day, if these companies collapse, what's going to happen to the actors and actresses and everyone else that works for those companies? We're seeing a lot of businesses make these record profits over the last 3 years. So you may think, well, it's kind of impossible. But eventually, significant spending cuts in things like innovation and labor can see a diminishing quality in products, like we've talked about with these production companies and studios. And when you have a diminishing quality in products and services from your businesses, at some point in the long term, it will take a toll on the business, and then it becomes less sustainable for that company to operate as it starts to lose its customer base, because it's not providing any value for its customers because it's taken all the value out of its products. So a recent example of that is Topshop. If you know about the clothing brand Topshop, then you know it doesn't even exist anymore. And Topshop's former director, she was the director until 2006, Miss Shepherdson, she had commented that the collapse of the corporate group behind Topshop was inevitable due to their chairman never expanding their reach on online shopping or investing in any of the businesses. So that company failed. And when it did fail, you saw mass layoffs in the thousands to 10 of thousands. I think it was about 30,000 people were laid off from Topshop when it collapsed. So that will affect all of us, our economy, and our brothers and sisters' way of living. And that's not something we want either. I hope this video has been helpful and informational. I said I'll leave my resources and sources and citations down below in the bio, in the description, and I will. Please let me know if you like this kind of content, if this has been a good video, because I would love to talk more about law and policy and how that can intersect with media and entertainment and other things for us to enjoy. So that's it though, and that has been your girl Britannia, and I hope you guys like that, and bye! I hope you come back for the next one. Later!
Here we go, it's all about you, it's all about me, it's all about what we do. Making art, you and me, trying to find something to believe, because I'm running wild, I ain't running free. Still got a lot of shit left to see.